but we never stopped blocking and tackling and trying to move down the field. But now we have to do some passing for some long yardage, and that's exactly what we've done. That slow growth budget I talked about, the slowest growth budget in 42 years, made unprecedented investments in early childhood education because 85% of a child's brain develops before the moment she or he walks into the kindergarten door, and unprecedented investments in higher education because the difference in lifetime earnings between a high school graduate and a college graduate over their lifetime is $1 million. Our budget extends the 2-year tuition freeze at all University System of Ohio institutions for a 3rd year and for a 4th straight year at all our 2-year community colleges. That means that 60% of all students in our public institutions of higher education today will have seen no increase whatsoever in tuition for 4 straight years. Ohio is the only state in the country who can say that. That's right, Peggy's applauding anyway. Okay. Okay. Right. I told you that was an applause line, remember? Okay. We passed an energy bill. We passed an energy bill that says that by the year 2025, 25% of our energy needs will be met by advanced and alternative energy. It's the 3rd most aggressive portfolio standard in the country. I went to Houston recently to the American Wind Energy Conference, and the lines were long to see Ohio. And it wasn't just because we passed our portfolio standard. It's because we're the 3rd largest manufacturing state in the country, and we have a built-in supply chain that other states that passed their standards long before us envy. The result, more than 100 companies today, identified by WireNet and the Great Lakes Wind Network, are in our pipeline ready to go, and in some cases already doing it, like, for example, Rotec. Dick Pogue's on that board. Rotec is already doing slewing bearings for wind turbine manufacturers around the world, and they're just about 20 miles from here. So, was that enough? No. We then, long before there was a federal stimulus bill in Washington, D.C., the governor and I introduced and passed on a bipartisan basis a $1.57 billion stimulus package. And what does it do? It invests in our infrastructure, the Clean Ohio program that revitalizes brownfields. It invests in the Historic Preservation Tax program that is absolutely going to revitalize Euclid Avenue because of the Historic Preservation Tax credits that we have granted. Our Job Ready Sites program that basically says that even if you don't have an identified developer, you better have land that is shovel ready and job ready when that site selector calls. We are also making sure we invest in higher education internships and co-ops. The most frequent thing that people say to me as I travel the state is, what about the brain drain? What about our kids who are graduating from high school and college? They're leaving. Well, there are lots of ways to deal with that, but research shows the single best way is to have subsidized internships and co-ops in our colleges that give the opportunity for a business not to interview a young man or a woman for a half hour, but to interview them for a year. And for that young man and woman to have an experience in the real world, which increases their chances. Research shows about 70% that they will stay in that state and very often work at that business. We set aside more money than any state in the country, $250 million for those internships, and that's not all. We invested $150 million in advanced and alternative energy, $100 million in distribution and logistics because of the phenomenal infrastructure we have. Think about this. We're 4th in rail. We're 4th in public and private airports. We're 6th in highways. We have more freight that goes through the ports of Lake Erie and the terminals of the Ohio River that goes through the entire Panama Canal, and we have access, as we all know, to Lake Erie, part of the largest body of fresh water in the world outside of the polar ice cap. So distribution and logistics, location, 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 that is a great opportunity, and we're still not done. $100 million for biosciences because of the clinic and UH and Metro, and the wonderful, wonderful early startups. The success stories go on and on and on because we are, in many ways, the healthcare capital of the world. And $50 million for bioproducts, to create products not out of petroleum, but out of the things that we grow, like soy and corn. But, you know, even all that isn't enough. So we put together the first ever strategic plan in the history of the Ohio Department of Development. The department had done some good analyses of Ohio's economy, but there was no plan. There was no plan that had a mission, a vision, strategic goals, strategies, initiatives, performance metrics. Now we have it. We have three lead measures. First, raise the per capita income of Ohioans. Today, we're 9% below the Midwest average. Second, have job growth rate by retaining and creating jobs, and we are below the Midwest rate. And third, increase technology and productivity and innovation. And we can measure that as well. Our mission to change the trajectory of Ohio's economy, and we do this with 5 goals, 15 strategies, 18 performance metrics. And here are the 5 goals. Number 1, share the Ohio story. We know the projects we win. We know the projects we lose. None of us know the projects we don't get an opportunity to compete for. So we must speak and talk about Ohio's assets. This isn't about survival. It's about thrival. As Mayor Jackson said in his State of the City address not long ago, this isn't about running away from the fight. It's about running to it. And so when we share the Ohio story, we tell a story that is not one that our kids have to read in 20 years. It's a story that can unfold today. The second is to strengthen our strengths. We cannot be all things to all people. So investing in industries of growth. You know, Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player who ever lived, when asked, what makes you a Hall of Fame hockey player, he humbly said, I just learned how to skate where the puck was going, not where the puck is. Well, that's exactly what we need to do, which is why I've identified 9 statewide targeted industries that, based upon past investment and where we see the world going, have the greatest chances of success. And no surprise, alternative energy, advanced energy, bioscience, advanced materials are right at the top of the list. We have a win strategy: work, invest, and nurture. For our traditional companies in steel and automobile, we will not turn our backs on them. We will work with them because we believe that they can get out of this if they reinvent themselves, and we will help them. And then we will invest and nurture in those other industries of growth. Our Third Frontier program has been nothing short of phenomenal. Think of this. For every $1 public dollar spent by the state of Ohio in our Third Frontier program, we are getting or leveraging 9 additional private or federal dollars for Ohio. And leverage and the multiplier effect is what economic development is all about. In addition to strengthening our strengths and sharing the Ohio story, we also focus on the game changer in economic development. If financial incentives and infrastructure are the ticket of admission to the economic development competition, then it just gets you onto the field and into the arena. But to win the economic development competition comes down to this: ideas, knowledge, talent. We used to measure our economy by the heights of our smokestacks and the strength of our backs, and today we all know we measure it by the strength of our ideas and the depth of our innovation. And so as a result, we are creating a business-focused, business-driven workforce development system customized to the short-term and long-term needs of our business community. Working with the Fund for Our Economic Future, we are developing what's called here in Northeast Ohio the Regional Talent Bank, an offshoot of the Skill Bank, that basically says we're inventorying the employment needs of our targeted industries and matching them up with the talent in-state and out-of-state to make sure that more and more women and men in our state have the opportunity to go to work, because even though we have an unemployment rate of 7.8%, we have thousands of jobs unfilled, and we must fix that mismatch. Goal number 4, invest in our regional assets. You know, we are an unusual state. Pennsylvania's got Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Michigan's got Detroit. Illinois has Chicago. Ohio, well, we've got Cleveland, Akron, Canton, Youngstown, Toledo, Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton. 16 metropolitan areas on top of those 8 major cities. We are diverse, which means that a one-size-fits-all strategy doesn't work. And so when focusing, for example, on Northeast Ohio, we focus in on our assets. And what are those assets? We know what they are. Our healthcare institutions, our fresh water, our NASA Glenn, our University Circle, Case Western Reserve and Case, and all the other great institutions of higher learning like Tri-C and others. This is a place where we can actually make wonderful investments, but it must also be an infrastructure. It's why Mayor Jackson and I are working on the Opportunity Corridor, and why we're working on the West Shoreway, and why we're trying to work on the Inner Belt.